help set the table here, though, because I think 2001, I had forgotten about the Eggleston, was the crew chief. Michael wins the Daytona 500, albeit with, tragedy.
Sure.
And now DEI is without its leader.
I've always just looked at you and thought, all of the blue 15 years, it was you, right? But you weren't there in 01 at Daytona.
No, sir.
When all that went down and how that affected Michael, you weren't there in that moment. You came in after all that kind of was getting placed and pieced back together, right?
Yeah. And it was a team in shambles, because Steve was trying to do his job, up on the hill.
Yeah, Steve was the competition director and was just subbing till they found who the crew chief would be, which he would he would do that for me as well. But so you get placed in there as the crew chief, and I remember you being there a really long time, some good stability. This is interesting to me now because up until this point, you had kind of been like bouncing from this to that to the other, and this opportunity, and losing this job, getting this job, back, bam, bam, bam. Now the longest tenure that you have to this point is now with Michael.
It is.
What was it about him that you never want? What was it about Michael or that job or that role that made you never walk out the door and go somewhere else?
Right.
Because I'm certain that you seem to have the ability to say, you know what, I'm going to go do something different.
Right.
And you would do it. You didn't even think twice about it. So what made you stick around for so long?
Well, for one, I was excited to go back to work at DEI. We talked about all the great things that with your dad and everything, and then just for that opportunity to go back.
Was it still the same?
It was definitely different, for sure, 100% different. And, all the tools that were in place at DEI, I came from Robert Yates Racing and Hendrick Motorsports, and what your dad had built at DEI, they had everything they needed to be successful, and I had that opportunity with Michael. And, one thing we talked about with the guys was like, Michael's a guy not known for running competitively every week, and if we can win races with Michael and run competitive, I said it's going to bring all of our stock up together. So if we all believe in Michael, because he's got the sponsor and he's the driver, and we can be successful together, we're all going to have benefits. So basically walked in the door and just had a meeting with everybody, and I didn't come in and start cutting front clips off and changing everything. We kind of just understood what they had and went to work.
At DEI, Dad had built this big giant shop, but in that big giant shop was the 1 car and the 8. The 15 was in the old AC Delco Bush shop about 300 yards down the road. Even in that scenario, y'all were somewhat of on an island, and that might have been actually nice, right? Because you're down there, you basically had more freedom, I suppose. Right. To be creative and however make decisions without worrying about what was going on up at the big house.
It's like I had my own race team.
Yeah,
I was just a half mile away from the big house and I had my own race team. But it was funny because Jay Gannier, you remember Jay? Yep. He always had a air horn on his toolbox. So every time I would walk into the 8 shop, they would blow this air horn and start covering cars. Yeah, because they never wanted me to say. Yeah, it was competitive as hell. So when Fred Graves worked for me, Andy's dad. I had Fred hijack the gate code, and I turned off access to everybody on the 8 team, so they couldn't get to our shop.
Yeah,
it was that competitive amongst us because we knew when we went to Daytona and Talladega, somebody on Highway 3 was bringing home a trophy. Yeah, and it was that competitive.
Yeah. What was your relationship with the Uries? Starting out, like I'm asking, before you even came to DEI, were you? I'm sure you guys knew each other.
Yes, still good. Everything was great. We raced against each other.
Okay. And so then when you get to DEI and it's so competitive, was there any tension between you and the Uries?
We were good friends. We always had good times and always talked. But I think like if we came up with a spring or a shock or something, it wasn't like we drove up to the shop and said, "Hey, we got this."
Guess what we found.
Yeah. So I mean, we came up with a spring, Voltland Springs out of Germany. They built us a spring. It was $4,000, and we had an advantage. We took that to in 2002. We took it to Homestead and finished second with Michael. Simply because of that technology, and in today's world, you have to share that with your teammate, and back then we didn't, So there was a lot of when it comes to speedway racing, it was definitely they didn't want to show me all their stuff.
And Tony and them did the same, man.
Absolutely.
They would have things, and like you say, they'd cover the cars up. I remember going to Daytona and Talladega, and when we would, it was a it was a race amongst ourselves to get everything going to be able to. So, you know more about this than I do, but from my perspective, the first time our cars came down pit road, all of us were taking rounds out of the back. Right? There was a way you went through tech before the race, and another way you went through tech after the race.
You were allowed a half-inch tolerance.
Yep. And so you'd start the race with on the high side of that, and they were going to end the race right on the borderline.
Yeah.
And a lot of teams weren't aggressive with that, right? But you were really aggressive with it, and Tony Senior and them were too, if not in spite of you, right, or to spite you. There was a seriously, man. Yeah. When y'all would beat us at. So when me and Michael, it's the weirdest thing. When me and Michael are out on the track, we're like, "Hey, man, I'm gonna help you. You help me.
Right. It's
we're
in
working
my mind
together.
right now. Yep.
We raced like very good friends.
Yes, you did.
And then, but the teams are in the pits, going, "We got to do more than they're doing.
Yeah.
We got to pull more rounds out than they're pulling out." Whether they're, and there was a grumble of, Tony Senior would be like, They did this and they figured this out.
Let's pit on 82 and I'd come on 81.
Yeah.
Just like back then it was crazy, but we knew like it was either going to be
one
us,
or the other,
us or him. You know, so it's.
So we were sitting there. You guys won the firecracker race in 2003 or
2002.
2. Okay, 2002. Yeah. We're racing along. It's coming down to the end. There's like 10 laps to go. I'm running second to Michael, and I've got Rusty Wallace behind me. So if I move to go around Michael, Rusty is absolutely not coming with me because he's the other beer car. Rusty was absolutely never going to help the other beer car. And that's fine, but I knew that while I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, but I can hear, not literally, Tony Senior's not literally telling me this, but I can hear them go, "Your ass better try something. We're not going to follow Michael across the finish line." And I'm like, there's many times where Michael had followed me across the finish line.
Right.
I'm sure he tried, but he didn't cost himself a good finish or me, right? And there were times when we'd go across the finish line and it was me and him, and he was fine with it. He's like, "Hey, it's just the way it went today." And I'm sitting there going, "I got to try something." I pulled out of the line like 2 or 3 to go, and nobody went. And I ended up like falling to the back of our little 6-car draft. And I was like, "What the hell am I supposed to do?" And I'm thinking like, "Hey man, I can get out and say to Tony, I tried, man." Yeah. But then when I saw Michael, he's like, "What are you doing? Why did you try to pass me?"
Right.
I freaking help you all the time. And there you are trying to go around me. And I was like, that was out of character.
You say Tony Senior didn't literally say it. I think he literally did.
I
remember a radio transmission
He did.
where you were really confused on what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all were in a red flag or if it was just under caution. And he goes, "We got a whole team of people down here that says you need to try something.
Yeah.
That's
Or
right.
you need to go pull out and do something."
Yeah.
He absolutely
You were
told
heavily
you that.
influenced.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was sitting there going, "I think I should sit here, but I know, I don't have any help behind me."
He played the team card, which makes total sense based off of what you guys are saying, right? It was that competitive with
It
each
was.
I'm glad you did what you did because I won my first race as a Cup crew chief. So thanks, man.
No, wait a second.
I don't
though.
think I was going around either way.
Yeah, it was tough.
Go back, though, to 2001, though, because that was the firecracker race in 2003. But this one is 2001. You're the crew chief by this time?
No,
Okay,
Steve
so
was.
this was still Steve.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, so I mean, I just remember the teams they worked together to a point when there was real speed advantages and so forth. They absolutely kept those from each other if possible.
We were so competitive, but we would learn I would learn from Bono, who worked on the 1 car, what the 8 was doing, right? And then Bono would tell the 8 guys what we were doing on the 15. So, I mean, it was super competitive. Like, you'd go in the body shop at night when his car was in the body shop getting Bondo work done. And, I mean, hell, the car that I won the 2003 Daytona 500, it was built at the fab shop, but we did so much to it in our shop. It's got 3 noses on it and 2 roofs, but that wasn't done up at the shop because we didn't want no one to know. But, I mean, that's the type of thing that you do. Like, we actually put padlocks on the doors where we did all this work because we didn't want nobody finding out. But,
Can you guys get away with this if DEI has its leader and isn't in a little bit of a disarray? I mean, like, is this a normal thing? Is what I'm trying to understand.
I loved how we pushed each other, man.
It was very normal.
Yeah,
that was absolutely no different than any other team we've had. We've had them. We've had other teams, other people involved in other teams. The Cranifus Hoss deal with. Jeremy Mayfield and Rusty Wallace and all those the Dad and Skinner team. I mean, they all competed.
But man, we pushed each other so hard. Like Tony Jr. and myself, I just had a different way. If I wanted to do something, I'd look in the rule book and try to find my way through it. Where other people were more methodical and well, we can't do that. I'm like, screw that, we're doing it, But man, it was battle for the competitors because Tony Jr. and myself going against each other made us so much more competitive. We just grew together. But, there was things that we did that they didn't know about, and I'm sure there's a load of stuff they did that we didn't know about. But
is that a realization in the moment, or is that a realization in hindsight that you guys were actually good for each other?
Oh, I knew.
Y'all, do you think he did? Do you think that he appreciated how you guys were so competitive that it was making you both better?
I do. I really do. I really do. Because we laughed and kid and
y'all did.
Yeah, but we got along good. Hell, we had a party at my house. I don't know if you remember this. 2003 after Bristol, we raced Bristol Saturday night. We had a party at my house on Sunday, and I told my wife, I said, "Look, we're going to do something for the 15 guys, and we're going to rent some bouncy house for the kids to jump in and have go swim and have cookout and stuff." So anyway, I didn't tell my wife, but 250 people showed up. Right, so we had this big party. I told Tony Jr. and everybody. So I got home from Bristol like at 2 o'clock in the morning. My brother-in-law, Tommy Wheeler, I don't know if you know him. He's in motorsports, but he's cooking barbecue and all this stuff. So, like, I get home, and it's wide open party time. And I bet you don't remember this, but it was probably about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Keep in mind, we're supposed to have 25 to 50 people over, and there's 250 people show up. We ran out of beer, and you were there. Park was there. Everybody was there. And I'm like, Dale Jr., we're out of beer. We got a problem. No problem, man. I got this. You called somebody, and 30 minutes later, a Budweiser truck backs down the driveway.
Guarantee it.
And I was like, this is so effing cool,
I don't remember that.
But no, you don't remember it? Yeah. Well,
I bet you don't remember it, but I bet you know that how possible that was.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just call up the beer truck. I mean, you probably called Joe Glenn or somebody.
But my point was everybody that worked at DEI was there from the 8 to 1 to 15. We all got along, had a good time, and, had a big party. And I rented this stage to go up in the backyard. My wife didn't know about this either. So Sunday morning, we rented this stage. This guy pulls up in a tractor trailer to put this stage up in the backyard. Well, hell, there was a tree in the way. Well, we had to cut the tree down. Yeah.
Oh,
and then we had a live band playing. But, I mean, it was a good time. But, yeah, you were pretty drunk that day. You probably don't remember.
Oh, well, that's not a unique situation, I'm sure, back then.
We were all there with you, trust me. But, no, we all got along really good. I thought so. Like, I don't think there was ever, like, screw him, he's a I don't think I've never, like, I always had that respect for Pops and Junior to keep it, we race against each other, and we're friends during the week and enemies on race day. When they throw the checkered flag, that's the mentality I have, man. From checkered flag, from green flag to checkered flag, I didn't care about anybody but myself and winning the race because that's what I was paid to do.